He'd been conducting interviews with migrants who crossed into the U.S. Your reaction to that answer, soon you will know who I am.
So I'm so happy that a video surfaced because there's an argument that we've made at the United States Supreme Court because we have one or two cases in the Supreme Court as we speak right now against the Biden administration about illegal immigration. And as the court weighs and considers our defense against the Biden lawsuit, they have to consider whether or not there is an invasion going on. I have asserted in court that there is an invasion going on in the United States of America, and that videotape typifies why there is such an invasion. That is a threat to the United States of America, what he said, but it's not a one-off threat. We see things like that happen every single day. So, Maria, my hope is that the United States Supreme Court and courts across the country, they see exactly what's happening on our border. It's not what happened under Bush or under Trump or under Obama. This is something completely different that has never happened before in the history of the country. This is an invasion by people we don't know who they are, where they're coming from, or the danger they may pose. And so it's right for Texas to have taken the steps that we have taken to crack down on the illegal crossings, to declare it an invasion and use every tool we can to do the job that Biden is not doing, and that's to try to deny illegal entry into our country.
Yeah, and that invasion happened after Joe Biden walked into the Oval Office when he first started his term and started reversing all of President Trump's border security. So, Governor, I ask you, I mean, do you have evidence that in Texas you see things like theft and murder and upset? Do you have evidence that some of that is the result of potential gotaways or potential illegals in your state right now?
So, Maria, just as one example, there was a horrific murder of a young teen cheerleader in a high school a little bit north of where the border area is, and this was a few months back. Maria, things like this happen way too often. And, Fox News has reported multiple crimes by illegal immigrants over the past couple of months. And this is something happening every single day.
Wow.
But what we don't know is the full extent of the terror that has been imported into the country because of all the people who are on the terrorist watch list. We know the record number who've been apprehended, but people on the terrorist watch list, they pay more to not be apprehended. No one knows how many terrorists are in our country because of the open border policies allowed by Biden. One last real quick thing, Maria. People forget how secure our border was. Trump put in place 4 policies that led to a secure border. And when Biden came into office, he eliminated those 4 policies. We can have a president that will impose a secure border.
Yeah, and you've been managing all of this while also producing growth, economic growth in Texas. So my hat's off to you in that regard. But, Governor, this morning you are in Mumbai, India. You are leading an economic development mission in India for the next week. Tell me about your trip. A lot of businesses are looking for an alternative to China in terms of producing goods, but they're not so sure if they can find it in India because of the lack of infrastructure. What can you tell us?
Listen, the growth in India is faster than any other large country in the entire world, and we're seeing it firsthand. And Texas already has established extensive trade relationships with the largest businesses in India. Today, I visited with leaders of Reliance, which is the #1 largest business in India. I met with leaders of Emphasis, with Tata, with Wipro, all of which are in the top 25 largest businesses. And they have their largest operations in the United States or in the state of Texas. So we're here making sure that with those already doing business in Texas, that they will continue to expand that. With those that are not yet doing business in Texas, we're explaining why Texas has repeatedly been ranked the #1 state for doing business and the #1 state for economic development projects, and why we have no income tax, a reasonable regulatory environment. We make it easy for businesses to start and grow. And with India growing the way that it is, it's going to be a robust trade partner for years to come.
So you think you can continue to tap into the growth of India to help the businesses headquartered in Texas?
So yeah, the answer is yes, Maria, but remember this, and that is in the aftermath of both COVID as well as the hostilities from China. There's nearshoring, which is what we see in Mexico. There's friendshoring, which is what we see in India. There are a lot of movement by a lot of businesses that have been doing business in China, moving operations to locations like India. And Texas will be tapping into those operations, making deals so that as India grows, so will Texas.
Yeah, well, does India have the infrastructure to handle it?
So, Maria, almost every place you go, you see infrastructure projects being built. Highways, roads. A record number of airports are being put into place. The infrastructure is being built out by the Modi administration.
All right, we want to watch that. Certainly, I know businesses increasingly are looking for a production hub alternative to China. Governor, it's good to catch up with you, even in Mumbai. Thank you so much for weighing in on all of that, sir. We will continue the conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you, Governor Greg Abbott in Mumbai this morning.